and welcome everyone to
Not Fighting,
and backed by, I'd say popular demand, but there's been zero demand, but we did it anyways. And that is, we're welcoming back to the show, Nick Schrock.
Nick Schrock.
Yay.
Yay.
Nick Moose Schrock.
Nick Moose Schrock. I don't like, we talked about it last time, but I don't like it being inserted as if it's like.
I know.
So I have a question about that. So it's always been very awkward to me. In St. Louis, I had to do it because no one knew me as Nick.
Yeah.
So like, hey,
to hear
I'm
you
Nick.
as Nick is awkward.
Everyone calls me Moose. So it's fine to call me that. But out here, it's like 50-50. So I don't want to, it's very awkward to go, hey, I'm Moose. It's a very weird
about introducing yourself as Moose.
Yeah, in St. Louis it was a requirement because
nobody else knew who Nick was.
Because it's like, why wouldn't he tell me
like,
that?
is this guy, is he like
Well, also then they're like Goose.
Goose not
well, the Brazilians don't know what mooses are. So
I knew inside jokes would seep in. There's the first one.
Yep. Goose. Yep. The goose. The goose is loose, baby.
Like quack quack or
honk honk.
Wait. Yeah, I guess that's what a goose makes. So, in case you were joining because you wanted to check out all the sounds that animals make, maybe throw your kids in front of this podcast for a little while and go have
all McDonald's stuff.
Yeah. That's what you come here for.
Yes.
But so we wanted to come back and make Nick maybe a little bit more regular of a guest, primarily because
we just like hanging out.
Yeah. I'm here anyways. I'm normally just watching from a corner.
But we talked about it in between this podcast and the previous one, but I thought it's really interesting because we have so many shared experiences in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah.
And in the last episode, we talk about something and we could just kind of talk about like people that are general, but we all know who we're talking about and we can kind of like touch into
and
that.
And everybody has one of those types of people that in their life, for sure. Especially in the jiu-jitsu community.
For sure.
And I think that that's a testament to like we were like a wave of jiu-jitsu that came through. We were like the second big American wave. And I think that there's a lot of really unique experiences that you get alongside that. Jiu-jitsu now is really cool, but I think you'll see people all the time mention like, I miss the old days or, whatever. And we didn't have the old days where people are like, what's jiu-jitsu? Never heard of it. Kung Fu would beat it or something because the UFC had already kind of happened.
Yeah.
But a decent time before that. It's like when we were starting, it's like there was real champions, Chuck Norris, those guys were fighting.
But we did grow up in the era and the area in which there were a lot of really interesting tournament experiences. Number one of which is where we lived, which was St. Louis, Missouri. There weren't really tournaments to compete in.
No, there wasn't anything.
Our black belt made JW was like the first person to start hosting real tournaments.
Like in our area.
There was this thing, and you can look it up online. It's called Grappler's Delight, and it was at a bar.
But wasn't that in Indiana?
No, it was in Columbia, Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
And it was at a bar. And if you go back and look, our Professor JW competed in it, but there's really a who's who of grapplers that did this thing. And I think
Jeremy Horn compete in that?
Yes, Diego Sanchez, Keith Jardine, not known as grappler, and a bunch of other people that if you saw the names, you'd be like, oh, that's weird. But I think they competed for free drinks at that bar.
So
probably
great segue into an awesome jiu-jitsu story I had. Probably one of the most interesting tournaments I've ever done. It was in either Columbia or Springfield, Missouri or some.
Did you do the one that was outside?
No, it wasn't outside.
Oh, okay.
It was in a bar where it was pool tables. They moved those away and they put down puzzle mats.
Which that's not easy to do. Pool tables are heavy.
I'm thankful that they moved them.
Great thing. It was a professional event.
Very
Sounds
professional.
Like they had union help putting it together. Continue.
Yes. So, but the sponsor of the event was a local gun store. So each weight division.
Is it the one where they gave away? I'll let you take the ending.
I forgot.
Winners of each weight division won AR-15s. AR-15s all you had to do was fill out some paperwork and wait the 24 hours and get an AR-15. And so me,
That's
I'm
the
like,
most Missouri thing I've ever heard.
just got my blue belt. So I'm like 20 years. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll go get an AR-15 and go sell it. They were like,
for sure.
For sure. I was like, I'll make some money. But it was no-gi tournament. Like they had whatever rule, I forget, some no-gi rules. And so there was no ranking.
It's hard to get shot when
like,
you're naked. And so the thought is, it's like, we want to make sure that whoever gets this rifle knows what to do with it.
Right.
If you're going to be attacking people, you're going to need to be naked.
Right. And so there was black belts through blue belts in this tournament.
Yeah.
But really just a couple of black belts that came down, the Lennon brothers, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they came down and they entered all of the weight divisions. Because they're like, we're just going to clean up.
We're going to get
and
every
a ton of AR-15s.
All the guns.
Which I don't want to know how many Naga belts those guys own, because for a long time they were like the only black belts like in the general area, and so when Naga came
like
around,
great at no-gi.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh,
like, yeah. But outside of them, so they're great at jiu-jitsu. They should be competing at that level.
Yes.
But other than that, you got a bunch of people that see, I can win an AR-15 from Central Missouri showing up.
I'm blue belt.
Yeah, exactly. So tons of people, the general people that went there were awful at jiu-jitsu.
That's so amazing.
I remember fighting a guy. It's like I had been training for under 2 years at this point, right? And I fought him and it was like his first day at jiu-jitsu. So I just took him down, passed him or something. And I remember seeing him like talking to the promoter after, make sure you let me know when you have another one of those. Like he just got unlucky. Yeah. And he wants to compete again so he can win an AR-15.
Like he's that guy that whenever you guys get done, and if he had to give up like $10, he'd be like, double or nothing.
For sure. But
that's awesome.
We should call Ezra. We should just be like, they walked out of that place with like 4.
Yeah, like
I lost to him. I lost to him in the finals in overtime. Right. And only because JW, who's a Sambo black belt, is coaching me out of getting heel hooked for 10 minutes straight. As Ezra is trying to rip my legs off. Like I was so behind the whole time.
That's awesome.
But luckily he's like, every time I started to do something and just start yelling at me, no, defend the hands, save my legs. But yeah, they walked out of there with like all of the AR-15s.
Yeah.
That's
and you would
awesome.
think like, that's because this is in, the mid-Missouri, and that's just what jiu-jitsu tournaments were like. But au contraire, because I would say, especially when we first started jiu-jitsu, like you in particular, we had to drive a minimum of 8 hours just so that you could like compete against another woman.
Yeah.
And like woman actually goes up in quotes a little bit because
I almost had to fight Fallon Fox, the notoriously transgender MMA fighter who was also like outweighed me by like 40 pounds.
And you didn't have to fight her the one day where I think there was maybe one other woman in the division, and she came up and she's like, hey, are you going to do the absolute? And you were like, yeah. And she's like, all right, I think I might do the men's division. And you were like, okay.
Yeah. Then like years later, find out she's actually a man. Well, was a man. So yeah, I'm grateful that I didn't have that experience.
I think I actually
weren't you like
look at it the opposite way.
50-0 at one point?
I don't know. I didn't keep track of
you
my.
You guys kept track. I remember hearing about it.
No, I never kept track of my like wins.
Somebody was lying.
But I never. I'm like my first loss was at blue belt in the finals at Pans.
Yeah.
I know that, but
it bothered her for months. That's all I remember is being like, after a couple weeks of it, just being like, well, I guess this is my wife now. She's gonna be angry forever about losing that one match, because you had a pretty nice streak. You'd never lost the jiu-jitsu match, and even in that one, I think you jumped him out.
I jumped him out. I like landed I pulled guard and landed him out,
which you did all the time.
Yeah, and I did that at every belt.
She jumped him out, got an advantage for going for an armbar, lost the armbar, and then ended.
I finished with me like trying to take the girl's back. Like I'm like perched on her, like she's turtled.
It's just kind of classically
I just
one
lost
of those.
like 2 points, I think.
Yeah, it's classically one of those ones where it's like.
I mean, I still remember that very vividly because it's my first loss.
Yes.
I remember what my first like loss like that. It was at Pans, or it was for some reason. And I come off the mat and I was just like devastated.
Yeah.
And I remember, but also exhausted. So I just like, don't talk to JW. And I just bolt towards like, I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to go behind under the bleachers, which is, and just sit by myself. And I remember like, cause you're boxed in. There's like, you're in and out of the bullpen. So I'm like, hey, can I get through here? And it's like this. And the guy kind of looks at me, an older guy, and he's just like, whatever. You know, clearly disappointed. Jacare, head of Alliance, was that guy looking at it now. Like the last guy you want to just break the rules in front of. You know, just like some arrogant blue belt.
Yeah, I remember the first time I lost. Also, first tournament I ever did. I actually was happy to win my first match. I can't remember what I did. I think I shot on the guy, and the guy sprawled so hard, my face bounced off the mat, and I like busted my lip really bad. And I just remember like in a panic, then armbarring the guy and being like, I'm just happy that worked out. And then the next match, I fought a guy that was like just better
Wasn't it like
me.
some weird choke that he caught you with?
It was a baseball bat choke, but it was like from mount. I don't know.
Rape choke.
Something like that. Yeah.
I wasn't there. That was the only tournament I think I'd
I think I'd only been training like 3 or 4 months or something like that, but was just 1-1, baby.
And that same tournament, one of our friends got choked unconscious from standing
cross collar choke. That's how you know it works.
Dave Harbison, aka the Pony Puncher.
That's good. I'd love to see him compete.
It's funny. He used to always say to me, he's like, you know
was
what?
It Dave or Matt? It was Dave.
It was Dave. Dave used to always say, like, when I go into tournaments, you know, I think to myself, Dave, you don't ever do double unders passes. Don't you do it this time? And sure enough, I double unders pass, and bam, that guy's got me in a triangle right away.
So it's not a double unders. It's basically
the guy
what that
just pulls
means.
his arm out.
Yeah.
Yes, every time.
I remember he fought a guy one time in a tournament that was like triangling a lot of people, and we watched the guy triangle a bunch of guys, and I was like, Dave, all you have to do, the guy's just getting people in close guard and putting them in triangles. Just don't let the guy put you in close guard. Whatever you do, just pull guard first. Dave goes out there, runs right up to the guy. The guy pulls tight guard. He looks over at me, slowly goes to his knees, and gets put into a triangle.
like, well, it's happening now.
So many times I've been coaching people, and I'm talking, and you have an instinct to look at someone when they're talking to me.
Yeah.
And you're going to get, it's like you start doing this. Like,
yes.
It's like so I've yelled at so many people, stop looking at me.
Yes.
Stop looking at me. I'm like, oh, okay.
There's
Going
only
back to
certain
it.
moments in the match where you can look at your coach.
Yeah.
Because there's been times where you're like coaching somebody and you're like telling them to do something because you're like, I don't know if I like say this, they're going to understand what I'm doing. So you try and like motion like what you want them to do. But they have to be in a pretty dominant position or just stuck in a bad position to be able to do that.
One of the funniest things to me is like, you know, sometimes we're talking about like people will look at you when you're coaching them or something. The weirdest one is whenever someone looks at you when you're coaching them, but like unprompted, where you're just like over there kind of watching the match, and then they just look up at you like they're looking for advice, and then you're like, are you looking for the time? The score? The score is you're losing. The time is there's still like 3 minutes left. You can see that too, and they just like look at you, and you're like, keep fighting him.
Yeah, I've had that with an MMA fighter. It's like we just lock eyes. Just like, I'm the wrong person to be looking at. I'm not even in your corner. I'm just in the front row.
Just here.
Yeah.
Which that has happened. Like you weren't coaching me, but I think it was on one of the Fight to Wins. One time I did Fight to Win. You and Michelle were front row.
Oh, yeah, I was front row.
Tyler's behind me, so it's like it's a square. So like you're on one side, my coaches are on the other side, and so like if I was facing you, I was just looking at you like what like. Should I do this? Yeah. And I'm looking for advice.
I'm not a quiet person at tournaments.
I know I can trust him. Like, if I can't see Tyler, I can see him. Like, oh, this is okay.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu matches, I feel like, get harder and harder for me to coach someone the more and more I care about them. Because it's like, I don't want to give you that wrong advice, but...
you don't want to be the reason that they lose.
And then MMA fights are even worse for me in that respect. Because I'm just like, the entire time, I'm like, yes, 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 no, And that's the extent of don't put me in your corner. I've said it before. I've told the story on the podcast. Don't put me in your corner.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I just want you to be there for emotional support. Keep your mouth shut.
See, he's going to be the worst at emotional support because he's going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's like when I like him there, it's like a security blanket.
Nah, that makes
you
sense.
know? Like, I don't need you to
It's
say
warm.
anything.
It's warm.
Just
It's heavy.
be there and like be supporting. Yes.
It's like
he's my weighted blanket.
The things that comfort me before competition are the exact opposite from Jena. Like, we're very different in that respect. One of the reasons why she's a much better competitor. But like, it's funny because it's like, you know, I was telling you about something you had told me after a tournament one time when I lost. It's not the right thing to tell everybody.
Nope, you gotta know. We talked about it. Yeah.
And I imagine that for Jena, I could be like, listen, what's the worst can happen? Someone punches you in your head and your eye gets, you know, swollen. I mean, unless your retina gets disconnected, in which case, I mean, you're blind in one. You're probably not going to get blind in both eyes. That's the worst that happens, right? You know, like
just give me worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
In most cases, people don't die. Like only in Russia.
And we're not in Russia, so who cares?
We're not even close.
No. But that's like, I mean, like I've been in that scenario where I've had coaches. It's like that have told me like all the things to worry about and not how to fight right before you go on a match. I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, oh, like don't get here. Like they got this good and they're this. And I'm like, you just put everything in my head that I had no clue. And like, now I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do in the fight. I'm thinking about what they're going to do. And then, and thinking in general versus just reacting and responding.
I was warming up for some like professional fighting tournament. I forget who I was fighting. But
ultimate fighting, if you will.
Ultimate fighting, yeah. So it's a competitive jiu-jitsu match. Probably he's like, "Hey, did you watch this match of the guy you're fighting?" It's like, "No." And then he starts getting out his phone to like show me this match to go over these things. It's like I'm warming up. It's like, what do you think I'm going to learn and change my game plan?
Yeah, you've already done all the work.
20 minutes before this match. It's like, I don't want to see that.
No.
I don't want to see him flying triangle somebody right now. It's not what I need in my head.
People at jiu-jitsu are weird, and jiu-jitsu, because especially like the era that we came up in, it was really the wild west. This thing like jiu-jitsu was just starting to sprout. There was just starting to be like schools everywhere and tournaments that you could compete in. And you know, we were talking about like just different weird odd stories like right before we came on. And you had said one, I was like, I thought you were gonna say a different one. I forgot it. I remember it. And it's all the different times that we weighed in for the Abu Dhabi trials. One time I remember in Texas, us being outside of like a hotel where the line wrapped around this like
that was so strange. And it was a motel.
It was a motel.
It was a motel.
It was a La Quinta. Nice. It was a La Quinta. I know that for sure. Yeah. And I remember just sitting outside.
The weigh-ins were like in the bathroom at the La Quinta.
It was in a room. No,
they
just got a room.
Yeah.
Like, this is where the weigh-ins are.
Yeah.
And but the thing that was so funny is like we pulled in, we're like, is this the right spot? And there was a guy like literally like marching band marching in like a sauna suit that had duct tape all around it, and he was just like sauna suit marching through a field nearby, and I was like, yeah, we're in the right place for sure.
For sure. That's how you know you're in the right place for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's like, is there somebody sweating, running around the building, frantically panicking?
Which other
other one was like in New York.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Because I forgot, because my belt, like I was like, I thought that I was gonna be on weight, but then the scale was like off there, and then I didn't have anything like. I'm like, I just need a lighter, because like all of a sudden, like now we have to weigh in. Like I think they changed it where we didn't have to weigh in gi, and now we did.
And then you had to wear the gi. And,
yeah.
And you couldn't check your weight because it was like New York cold, long line around freaking downtown New York.
In a tiny academy where it's like the bathroom was more of a
janitor's
closet. Yeah, janitor's closet. That's exactly what I was trying to think.
Because I think the fact that we both have that
borrowed,
memory.
Because I remember like number one, I borrowed one of the another girl who was like a rooster weight, like tiny girl. Smart. I borrowed her gi because it was super light. It didn't matter like what gi you had on, you just had to have a gi on. So I borrowed her gi, and then my belt was too heavy, and I borrowed their belt. And then I like didn't have like I was like naked under my gi, just like put hers on, changing in this janitor's closet to weigh in. I made the weight, and we're looking, and there's another guy weighing in, and he's got like
a trash bag
as a belt, like literally a trash bag as a belt to weigh in.
Because his belt was too heavy. So he's like, pulled a trash bag out of the trash can and was like, this is a belt. And they were like,
okay.
Nice loophole.
Nice. So funny. I wore the only time, not the only time, but the time I was the closest in weight where I checked and I was like 2 pounds over and I need to weigh in like 50. I was like, well, I gotta move some gi weight around. So I cut my strings like as short as they could go on the pants, and then I borrowed Jan's gi. Jan Pikapow.
Oh.
Who is not...
Like, how do you fit in that gi?
He is not a big person.
No.
Right? Now I think he's pretty yacked. But at the time, so my gi's probably up to here, right? It's like, what kind of shirt is
like
this?
Fat guy
like
in a
3/4
coat.
sleeves.
3/4 sleeves.
Baseball.
I'm just like, can't move at all. And I wore his belt, so it's like hanging on by the nubs, like on each
You
side.
just tie it once.
But it
Doesn't
wasn't
wrap around.
IBJJF, and it was like one of the World Series of Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, and black belts get way more leniency.
Oh, for sure.
Than those
Yeah.
others do.
That is one nice thing about being a black belt. I remember
Good or bad. Your opponents can wear like khaki,
Yeah.
no capris.
Capri.
But
Capris,
you could like, I mean, if you wanted to be kind of a jerk about it, like you can go to your referee before you before your match starts and be like, I think they changed skis. I think that's not legal.
I'm pretty
And
sure
you
his
do
pants are painted on, sir.
I saw that happen. The guys, the bottom of his pants it was obnoxious. It was
Mhm.
like halfway up his calf, closer to his knee than his foot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, his opponent's like, come on, man, come on. And then so they bring the measurement back over. The guy shimmies down his pants, so it's like he's sagging to back where it's legal. And they go, it passes, and he pulls him right back up, and they force the guy to fight him.
That's messed up. Well, like it has happened. Talita, she I guess she weighed in, and I think it was like Brazilian Nationals or something, and she weighed in, and then with just her sports bra under her thing, and then she went and put her sports bra on, like after she weighed in, and her opponent's coach called it, and then she got disqualified.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
I think it was something like that was like the story, but
yeah. It could be worse though. You could actually be forced to fight someone and then have the match stopped halfway through so that they could tell you that you're fighting the wrong person.
This is great. We were talking about this right before we went on air.
Totally forgot about it.
This was the one in Texas where it was an Abu Dhabi trials. Abu Dhabi, yes. We could talk about Abu Dhabi shenanigans.
There's a lot of
for the next
disorganization.
3 hours. A lot of disorganizations, and different people run each trial. So I don't know how that's possible.
But the thing is they hit a lot of what I would describe as jiu-jitsu tournament classics.
Yes.
So I'm fighting, I think it's even my second match at the trials. The same one where we weighed in at the La Quinta, right?
Yep.
Same tournament.
La Junta.
And I'm fighting a guy, and it's halfway through this match. So 3 minutes into a 6-minute match. And I'm up pretty much.
I think you threw the guy. You were in side control.
Yes.
Yeah, I was doing pretty good. And he was a tough guy. He's like super athletic. So I'm exhausted. And then I just hear, while I'm fighting in sanctuary, I just hear people arguing, right on the side of our mat. And then they stop our match. So me and this guy are just sitting here, which I am thankful for because I am tired.
Catching my breath.
Yes, catching my breath. And we're just waiting. And they go, hey, we got the brackets mixed up. You're not supposed to fight this guy. You're supposed to fight this guy first and then him. It's like, well, can we just finish our match? Right?
Yeah.
Can we just finish it and go through? And the other guy's like, yeah, let's just finish. I don't want to fight this guy again. Like, it's like,
He literally was like, I don't want to fight this guy again.
So anyways, some other competitor complained enough that I had to not fight him, so he went off. Another fresh competitor comes on.
Yep, no
I
break.
have to fight that guy. And then I beat him. And then they're like, okay, you'll fight that guy again right after this.
I remember watching that happen and being
crazy.
like,
So
oh my God, I
insane.
can't believe this is happening. And I remember you looking at me and me just like shrugging and being like, I don't know, man.
I don't know what to do
I don't
about
know.
this.
And then I remember
fine.
once they started the match, I was like, oh, I'm the guy that's supposed to be like, this is, no,
It's fine.
stop
It was
right
fine.
now.
It was, I was feeling a type of way, so I was feeling really good that day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I smoked that next guy that came on, and then
The other guy had to come back and
he
fight
had
you
to come
again.
back, and
he was already feeling
He was
defeated.
probably the best guy there,
Mhm.
right? I don't think I was up a ton looking back, but he had one very specific game. It's like, well, now I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so then I just steamrolled through him, and then kind of all the way into,
I
because
think
you had to win
probably
the absolute.
crushed his spirit
Who
before.
else was down there?
I
That
think
was the
because
day
that
that
was
guy-
like, you fought Jared Dopp in the absolute that time.
No,
No,
that was different.
that's a different
No, this
one.
was this. Who's from
That
Kansas
guy,
City?
funny fact, that guy that you fought twice, you'd actually beat him once before, and it was at that tournament that you're thinking
Oh,
of
okay.
in San
Which one?
Antonio.
Oh, okay. I
gotcha.
was thinking the San
I
Antonio
gotcha.
one. This was in New
Who-
York,
who
right?
was
That poor
down there
guy.
from? There was another brown belt, because I was a brown belt at the time. Who's the other brown belt down there?
I know, but I'm not gonna say his name.
I don't remember.
I mean, he was just in the tournament. Anyways, but okay.
Anyways,
Anyways,
but you mentioned like the Abu Dhabi thing, and I think that that's one of the most classic ones that we've all experienced together in Abu Dhabi. Number one, the day before, which is the first day of the tournament, whatever time you were scheduled to go, you went easily like 6 or 7 hours after that. And your
Yeah.
girlfriend, now wife at the time, was sitting out there and
Girlfriend
probably.
at the time, now wife. That was backwards.
Oh, did I say wife?
You said now.
anyways,
Yes.
this was in Abu Dhabi, the
Yes.
one we qualified
Yes.
for. So
She
Yeah.
was sitting out there all day, just like waiting for us.
It was like
to
her
go.
first experience, like watching tournaments.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Or just
and
first jiu-jitsu experience.
I prepped her.
Yes.
Anytime that's ever wanted, it's like, hey, I want to come watch you fight. No, you don't. No, you
Yes.
don't. You're not going to enjoy it. Jiu-jitsu's not fun to watch if you don't know what's going on.
But she had already watched you fight. And the second day, it was when Tyler and I were fighting. And she came. And you guys came to be there to support us.
And I was coaching because you guys are scheduled to go at the same time. So
Yes.
I couldn't sit with her.
Yeah. Well, you guys were sitting there. We were in the back warming up. And so Tyler was supposed to compete. It was like on the schedule. Tyler was supposed to compete at noon. And I was at 1.
Mhm.
And we
Maybe
show
one
up.
at 4 and 5, maybe.
Yeah, well, we showed up because we're like, we get there. He was supposed to compete at noon, so we're like, we'll make sure we're there like an hour early so we can like get warmed up and like just be there and whatever. And then we get there and they're like, there is a scheduled break at noon
Prayer.
for prayer for an
Prayer.
hour. And
Yep.
so it's like the tournament, we show up and like they're about an hour behind. And then there's a prayer break. So it's like they put you on the schedule at noon, but at the same time that they also scheduled a prayer break.
Yeah.
And so he was like over an hour behind. And then now it's like there's no updates. We don't know when we're going to show up. There's just screens on the mat that you're in. And it's like all of a sudden, and they were moving people around on different matches on different mats. And so we're in the back. We don't have cell service. We can't tell you what we're doing.
Right.
And like, so you and Michelle are just like waiting, just like in the dark about everything. And then Tyler and I are in the back, like wondering when we're going to go. I think you finally compete. And then I was supposed to go at 1. I think
Someone stole my sandals.
started at 5.
I had to steal another pair of sandals to compensate.
Yeah. We stole the ones that looked most similar just because
Yep.
that's what we did.
I think Patrick Gaujo stole them. I'm going
And
to be
you
on
also
record
fought
as saying
him.
that. Yeah.
Son of a bitch, Patrick.
But yeah, so like it was like one of those things where it's like I was supposed to fight at 1 and then didn't start my first fight until 5. And then I think it was literally the last match of the day because the mat that I was on was like the main mat.
Mhm.
And they moved everybody else around, but somehow I stayed there on that one where it was like kept getting backed up because they would throw like, oh, this is a good fight. We're going to throw it on the main mat and this is a good fight. And it was just
And they
like
didn't have people
the
queued up.
biggest cluster. So
Well,
you're
they
like,
have a screen. It's like for,
but it only
we're
tells you
assuming-
like 6 matches.
and so Abu Dhabi, it is the most professionally put together
Yes,
thing.
yes.
There's tons of screens in the back for each mat of like
It looks
you can-
professional.
You can watch the matches as it's going on. Next to that, there's a screen of the order, but you have somebody else that's consistently moving people. Like, so
Yep.
it's like you might be runner up, you're on deck to go. It's like, nope, you're pushed to 6 o'clock.
Mhm.
So we were watching a guy who, do you remember the pre-workout guy that was taking, he'd see his name pop up.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I forgot.
You know this. He'd see his name
Yes.
pop up And so he'd take pre-workout and get jacked out of his mind. But then they'd move him down the list.
It'd be like 4 hours later.
4 hours. And so I think we watched him, or you watched him do this like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
He took a shot of pre-workout.
I watched him literally just take a scoop of pre-workout and put it into his mouth and just.
And you're like, oh, like, when are you supposed to go? And so you see people like, okay, I think I'm going to be coming up soon. You start warming up, and then your name just disappears. And so you're like, well,
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take a nap now. And then you start warming up and like, should I eat? Should I not? It was just, as a competitor, that's like the worst.
And luckily the next day they really got their act together.
It like pains me to talk trash on them because they're my favorite tournaments.
And
they
it's,
really
it's
are.
one of those things where
such an experience.
It's a fun tournament to do, like regardless of those kinds of experiences. Like you're still like have a lot of fun doing it, but it's just like, oh my God, like, can you just get
it's
it
definitely
together?
not the
For
only
1 minute, just get it together.
I mean, we came up in that. I remember going and doing the Arnold's like back in the day. And it's like you're scheduled for 1, but you knew that meant like I'll go at 3 or 4 because they'll be so backed up before then.
But for a long time, you didn't even have a schedule.
Yeah,
like it was just they would
Gave
tell
you
the
order.
General order of what was going on, but there was no
Which
time.
Is better.
Which
it's
I mean,
if you're not going to be on,
first.
yeah,
you're going to go about 4 to 6.
But
I remember
we'll take it.
at a Naga. It was at the Arnold Classic, and one of our friends was competing, but wind up not even competing because by the time her division started, she had already had to be at the airport for her flight because it was supposed to be like in the beginning of the day, and then it was so late and so running behind that she didn't even get to compete. She had to just go catch her flight home.
Speaking of running behind, that same tournament where we were waiting all day in Abu Dhabi, the next day when we show up for the finals, they're like, it starts at 11. Like the event starts at 11. And so Jena, I don't think you were supposed to compete until like, I don't know, a couple hours after that. So we're like, we don't need to get there when the doors open. We just need to like get there a couple hours after. So we actually got there at 11 so that we could just start warming up. And we get there and all the competitors are standing outside. We're like, what is going on? Wasn't it supposed to start? Like, why are the doors locked? And then like at 11:15, a guy shows up and he unlocks the doors. And all of us are the first ones into the building. And this is something they're broadcasting on TV. They've got cameras. There's a staff that works. So you're like, there's one staff member here letting us all in. So it's going to be a while.
Yep. There's been a lot of those.
Abu Dhabi and Dubai, maybe not Dubai because we don't spend that much time there.
Yeah.
But that is just the most Abu Dhabi thing ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's such a weird place and a weird experience, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun because of what it is, like where it is. It's so kind of
because I think it's one of those places where I'm like, I don't know, like I don't have like I never had a desire to go there. I never had to like. It's like, what is this place? It's like the Middle East. The first time we went, I was super nervous. I'm like, can I wear my normal clothes? Am I gonna have to keep my head covered? Don't touch me when we're in public. Like, don't touch me, because I was nervous that they're gonna like chop my hand off or something. And then it's not that way. But going there, I'm like, I'm glad I got to experience that and like be there. And we got to go to Dubai and see all that part of the world. Yeah. But I'm not dying to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the first time. It gets less fun each time you go.
Yeah.
It gets less fun each time.
But I think that the experiences that we have there are really standard for jiu-jitsu. A lot of those elements are present in like a lot of early tournaments that we did. Mm-hmm. But one that I always find really interesting is the fluidity of rules, and this is something that's still present today. Like, because we had a friend that competed.
We had a
recently.
friend that competed like 2 weeks ago in Mexico City, and it's like it was like a combat jiu-jitsu tournament, and
I'm already skeptical.
Yeah, which it was normal jiu-jitsu for the first. It was supposed to be an 8-minute match. It was normal jiu-jitsu for.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love this.
So 6 minutes of normal jiu-jitsu. The last 2 minutes is combat jiu-jitsu.
Oh my god!
And so, I mean, she had signed a contract. She had gone over the rules. Like, you know, she speaks Spanish, and so she can understand like everything that's being written, said, whatever. And they had asked like 5,000 times, like making sure that they knew the rules, they understood everything. And I was even there on part of it, understanding what was going on before she went and accepted this thing. And so we're watching her match, and there's still 2 minutes left. So I think it was like 6 minutes, or no, it was like 4 minutes into the match. And then like they finally get to the ground, and the girl her opponent starts like hitting, like, and doing like the combat jujitsu stuff. And I was like, I thought that was the last 2 minutes. Like, this is weird. Maybe they changed the rules. I don't know, before whatever happened. And then there's still 2 minutes on the clock, and they stop the match completely. And then they went into overtime rules, which is like EBI overtime. And I didn't know how many. I didn't know. Number one, I didn't know that there was an EBI overtime. I think that was a change to the rules. And I didn't know how many rounds it was either. And so she winds up losing because the other girl escaped faster than her. Yep. And but there was still 2 minutes left on the clock, and I'm like, what happened? So I'm like messaging her and her friend that was there coaching her, and I'm like, what? Why did they stop it so short? And they're like, oh, the other girl was a purple belt, so they changed it because purple belts are supposed to, like, she was a brown belt, and she's like, so purple belts are 2 minutes shorter. And so mid-match they made that decision. And
really?
Yes, the mid-match.
Great. And that's a really classic thing from the standpoint of there's so many different times in jiu-jitsu where it's like, I feel like the way that the rules came up with, it's like the two guys that are like running are like, so like 6 minute matches, and you're like, yeah, 6. And you're like, but like no ankle picks for the first two, right? And you're like, yeah, no ankle picks for the first two. That makes sense. And you're like, and then -2 for the back after that. And you're like, -2 for the back. Sounds good. And then when the competitor's like, what are the rules? And it's like, it's -2 for ankle picks, and then you can only take the back. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you been in a tournament where you hear them discussing the rules before you step on the mat?
Yeah. My favorite is like because there's always rules meetings, right? Especially these local tournaments where it's like all the competitors get on the mat, which is great. It's like, hey, you can ask questions, do all these things. And especially when people are trying to, quote unquote, fix jujitsu with their rules.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Like, I've bet it's like ADCC is a great example. It's like, hey, no guard pulls in the finals, right?
Yes.
We want takedowns. And I remember asking, and I go, but there's no points for the first half, right? And they go, yep, no points for the first half of the match. I go, so if he hits a single leg and I go to my guard, I don't get penalized. They're like, nope. I'm like, well, I'm just going to stick my leg out there and have him grab. It's like,
let him grab.
Competitors are going to find ways around your rules. Like
in ADCC, like that's another thing is you saw people fake shoot because like like there's no points, but you get penalized for a guard pull. Like you'll get a negative point for that in the finals only. Yeah. And you would see it time and time again where they would like shoot a crappy shot and then just pull guard off of that. Yeah. And it counts as like, you didn't pull guard. But you did.
And that's where the old school comes in, and they're like halfway through the tournament. They're like, okay, so no shooting to guard. So shooting's illegal. No attacks below the waist. And you're like, wait, what? And that's the thing is like there's like that weird thing in jiu-jitsu where it's like not your classic quote of barely professional. Yes. Where it's like, you know what? I feel like I've got enough leeway. It's my tournament. We're changing the rules. We're going to bend them a little bit. Reaping's fine. No straight ankles, heel hooks only.
Right.
That would be fun. I'd do that tournament.
I'm curious if you guys have any stories. Like the first time I qualified for Abu Dhabi as a blue belt, it's like this is the most I'm broke, but I want to do this experience ever. So it's like the tournament was in Montreal, Canada.
Oh yeah.
And so I went by myself.
Nice. I was like, you were by yourself for that.
By myself. Yeah. But the plane ticket to Montreal was about $300 more than the plane ticket to New York. So I flew into New York, rented a car, and drove from New York
you did that.
up through Maine into a blizzard.
And it was like snowing really bad.
It was awful. It was awful into there, which was like not a great experience.
No.
But I didn't know any better because I was like 19, 20. And
who cares?
Stayed in this hotel. And I was cutting weight, so I had like pasta the night before.
Of course.
Yep. Of course.
Classic.
But then the next day, I remember competing, and it was just like, it's like, just fighting. And it was very much like that no one was quite sure of the trials rules up there.
Yeah.
But then I competed and won, but I was like, yay, I was by myself. So, but then I had to get back in a car, drive back down to New York.
Back to New York.
Back to New York, and then hop on a plane and come back. But have you guys, because I know you were engaged. Was it engaged when you started training? Or just together?
No, just dating.
Yeah,
but
just
you
dating.
were working though, right? So do you have any of those experiences? Just like we're doing it the most bootleg way ever because we're poor.
I mean, we basically just drove most places.
Yeah, we drove a lot of places.
Yeah.
I remember one particular tournament. I honestly can't remember exactly what state it was in. Maybe Ohio. But we were actually, I don't think we even put on the tournament. Maybe somebody was fighting a super fight, but it was me, you,
at that C3?
Sean Wood. Yeah, C3.
That was in Gary, Indiana?
It was me, you, Sean Woods, JW. We all stayed in a hotel together.
Oh, no.
You fought a little kid.
No, that wasn't the C3. That was the one, what's his name, put on. I can't remember, but yes.
I know what you're talking about. It's in Ohio.
Yes, it was in Ohio. And
Cincinnati.
In a cage, we take ice to our knuckles.
I fought a 15-year-old girl. I was like 20-something. And she so this is the best story ever because she was like, I remember because she was like training with Hobson Mora. So one of the guys that we trained with, Jared, was like good friends with Hobson. And so he was like, oh yeah, this girl, like she's really good. She's a teenager. She's up and comer and blah, blah, blah. And she's like so talented. And then I remember going out there and she entered, instead of entering the kids division, she entered adult, and I was a blue belt. And so she entered at blue belt, and I fought her and just wrecked her because she's like a child.
Armbar
like
20 seconds.
In the same
child.
way that you would armbar a child.
Yeah, and not like a child like Cole is a child. Like he is like a baby man. But like he's good, versus like
Cole is a man child who's 6'4" and 250 pounds.
All of an adolescent.
She was just like such a little girl, and I felt bad because I'm like, I'm competing just to win, and I throttled this little girl, and I felt so bad afterward because I'm like, I didn't want to hurt her, but I also am like, I'm here to win, so like I don't care. This is your choice, and you signed up for it.
And as a caveat to that, in almost every instance of tournaments that we could drive to in the early days, like you were just fighting any woman that showed up, and that usually meant women that were significantly larger.
Yeah, I was always giving up weight. And so this girl, like I just wrecked her, and then afterward, her and her dad come over to me, and they're like, hey, and they give me she has like a DVD of like techniques, I guess. Was it?
It's like a mixture of her skateboarding, doing jiu-jitsu, and then like techniques, but it's like highlight reels. I don't know what it is.
Why would you think I need your highlight reel?
It's like a mixtape.
I just got a pretty good highlight reel on you. Like, and so yeah, they give it to me, and I think I still have it somewhere because it's hilarious.
Yeah, we've kept it for a long time.
And she's got like all these like Naga belts on, and she's like looking like, how like those parents did, and it was always at Naga tournaments where they gave the little kids mohawks that were like colored different things, and they're like, yeah, my kid's tough. It's like they got fake tattoos and shit. Like,
so that's something that's very Midwest, where it's like not necessarily like she's probably a little like badass 15-year-old.
Yes,
right?
well,
like,
yes,
realistically.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she has a great relationship with her father now, but keep going.
Yeah,
but it's like for whatever, this happened to me all the time, where people would come up to me and tell me, and this was in like I'm a brown belt, or I just got my black belt or something. Like, no, this blue belt's really, really good. I think they'd give you a tough time. Like, what?
Oh, that happens so much though.
You're not only that's like incredibly. It's like they're a blue belt. I'm sure
it's very
probably
disrespectful
one of
to
the best blue belts in the world. But come on.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? And that doesn't really happen out here.
No. And there's
we find out really quick.
There's a difference now because you see the kids that are training, and they're like orange and green belts that are like purple and black, like some black belt level, but they just can't have that belt because they've been training for so long. Yeah. And that wasn't the case when we first started training jiu-jitsu. Now it would actually be more relevant because you see like kids like Mikhail Galval and like even Cole or whatever that could wreck black belts, and you've seen that happen when they were green belts, but that was not the case then.
But I feel like what Moose is talking about is not even just kids, but you'd have somebody
just
be like,
people. Yeah,
this guy's 32. Like,
yeah, and I don't know why it was just like,
no,
just
because
stop telling me about this.
I feel like it happened to you a lot. I
Yeah.
remember
All
it
the
happening
time.
to you.
It happened to me all the time.
Because you were so good, and everybody was like, no, this kid's going to be like a challenge for you.
Yeah. It's like they don't understand.
No.
now we're going to have to watch Moose beat this guy up.
Yeah. It's putting me in a really bad spot.
But didn't that happen in the Royale that you fought? They made
my God. So thank God. I would have said no. I would have said no. So I fought in this Royale where it was blue belts and brown belts. And Gutenberg, who's an incredibly talented black belt now, right? But he's probably, I think he won the Worlds at Brown that year.
Yeah.
At Super, maybe.
I feel like that was like the year he had the most hype.
Right.
Yeah.
So he won this invite-only brown belt tournament. And then, so this blue belt also
it was the
won
next Meow, right?
the next Meow. He was, and he's still really good today. I think he's a black belt now.
I don't even remember his name.
Continue.
Anyway.
Roberto?
Was it?
I think so.
Jimenez?
No, it wasn't.
No.
No.
Okay.
Anyways. But so he was a really good blue belt. Now he's still really talented. But he's also not, it was like,
You're a blue belt.
it was a heavyweight black belt tournament and like a lightweight / middleweight blue belt tournament. So it's brown belt versus blue belt. And then they go, so these promoters are getting together and they're like, hey, we think this blue belt's so good, we think he could beat Gutenberg. And it's like, let's get them to fight each other, which is, in my opinion, incredibly disrespectful to the brown belt.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so, and then they're like, hey, we'll give you like $500 to fight him. And so or whatever it was, maybe it was $1,000, I'm not sure, but it wasn't a ton of money.
But when you're poor and you need money.
And I told him, I was like, dude, it's like, you should ask for like $5,000 and see what they actually would have paid. He's like, you think I was like, you could have got more than you got.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But anyway,
We're like in and out afterwards.
So now this blue belt is fighting this brown belt. And for whatever, everybody's like all interested. I'm like, Gutenberg's going to murder this kid. And then he did.
And he did.
Very quickly, he like foot sweeps past and then quickly chokes him within like 2 minutes.
Looking at people like, is it all right?
Yeah. He got up and he was clearly offended. It's like, what did you think was going to happen?
Right.
Type of thing. He like kind of pulls his belt like, I'm a brown belt. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. And the promoters are like,
yeah.
Okay, now we know.
Oh, we didn't have the story we wanted. You know, they wanted to be like, this kid's the new thing. Which he still is.
But you mentioned the rules meeting earlier, and that's the thing that I always think is really interesting is when you do have the rules meeting, and then somebody's like, I have a question. You said no guard pulling for the first minute, so does that mean like no one can like accidentally get to guard? And they're like, oh, that's a good question. Tom! The guard pull thing. Tom! It's all right? It's negative 2 points to be in guard, plus 1 point standing up if you throw. So good luck. All right, everybody, let's get it together. We're running a little behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
there's a lot.
I think that's the thing is
a lot
like,
of shenanigans.
I think we talked about one
I
experience that you've had before on the podcast. We don't have to revisit it in entirety, but how many different times like scheduling being behind, rules changing or whatever, but you just end up competing in this like really weird situation. Like you got invited to do a pro thing at one point, and it was supposed to be, we thought it was going to be in front of lots of people, but they had a tournament the same day. And they're like, tournament's still going on, so we're going to have you guys come back, and you're just going to fight in this wrestling room. And she's fighting
this was in Florida, right?
She's fighting a legend.
Atlanta.
A Hall of Famer in jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And female jiu-jitsu.
Like my first, she was the girl that I looked up to when I started training, and now I'm fighting her, and I got invited to fight her. And it was so professional to then the guy picked us up from the airport,
Yeah.
flew us out there, it put us in a nice hotel, like all the accommodations, like took care of us like we were real athletes. And then when it came time to compete, it was like last minute. They're running like an hour late, and they just throw some wrestling mats down in this side room and like broadcast it over Facebook with like,
love it.
It was like Facebook Live with like 5 people, just basically the competitors in this room. And that's it. And I thought it was going to be like, it was supposed to be like this like pro show.
I remember afterwards too being like, well, maybe they had lots of people watching online. And I remember going and looking at the Facebook video.
Like, how can you
views?
afford to pay us?
And Facebook is like notorious for inflating their views. And I just remember looking at it being like 115. Okay. So like Facebook's counting 15 of those as me probably. So no one saw that. But I remember Big Brian, who's a guy who was training before we were. He was a blue belt, which at the time was like top of the food chain. And so he had lots of these experiences. But he'd driven down from North Carolina to meet us in Georgia. And as this is all happening, I just remember him like when they were moving us into the side room and like they were going over the rules and the rules were like changing mid-rules meeting. He just was like, oh, you guys want to go for a walk? I see what's going on here. And he's just like, yeah, this is a pretty classic situation here. We're gonna need to go ahead and just burn a couple hours now because nothing's happened for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will say that was one of my favorite things because I feel like that meant so much to me because like Big Brian was like, I don't know, like kind of like a mentor to both of us and just like somebody that we really loved. And he moved away. And then we moved to California. So we're on opposite coast. And then when he heard I was going to be there, he's like, oh, it's only like a 3-hour drive. And he drove and spent his whole weekend just to come watch me compete so he could see me. And I'm like, that whole thing was like worth it just to like see him and have that like time just to be like hang out with an old friend that we like haven't had an opportunity
He's such
for.
a good dude.
Yes.
He's like such a good dude.
Yes.
He was one of the first people. Probably Little Brian, of course. Little Brian is like 205.
Yeah.
Like,
Big Brian's like 3.
Yeah. Who knows now?
400? I don't know.
It's not an ironic name.
It's not ironic. It's like Big Brian is big enough to make a guy that weighs over 200 pounds be Little Brian.
Yep. True story.
Right? And Little Brian was the first person I ever trained with.
Yeah.
So he was always really supportive. But Big Brian was great at
he was like the first one to tell you to use more muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really good at articulating the right thing to say at the right time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and he was the first person like, you could really, if you did this the right way, you could make something of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? Like Little Brian and JW also mentioned that stuff before, but he was
the way he says it, it's like, you really believe in me.
Like,
and I feel like I can do anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, for sure. Then I think that's
sure.
that's like one of the great things about jiu-jitsu is you like get to like have those kinds of people in your life that just you would never meet outside of that. And like he was so, I don't know, I remember, I mean, he's obviously a giant, and for him and I to train together, like how much benefit do either of us get from that?
Yeah.
But it also was one of those things I'm like, we made it like regular that I'm like, yeah, we're gonna roll because it was fun for both of us just to be
and
there.
Funny for the rest of us.
Yeah. It was like a jungle gym for me.
We got really lucky
jungle gym for me
with that original group at Jace.
Yeah.
I look at a picture and there's like 30, 40 people and 90% of them are still training.
Yep.
It's like, so, and most of us were white and blue belts at the time. There's like 1 purple belt, 2 black belts. It's like everybody's still training. It's like
and I think
insane
you'll find,
to think about.
You'll find that quite a bit. Like if you stick around an academy that actually has roots and is not some academy that started yesterday, or is unable to stay in business, you'll find that like around the time that you start, even if one guy's got like it seems like when you start like 6 months, somebody that's got a year of experience, it's like, oh my gosh, this person, like they're always going to be ahead. But realistically, like they're in the same kind of class as you. And even though like probably now the attrition rate's much greater, like there's probably a core group of people that like you'll come up with, and even though those people may not have all the most redeeming qualities in the world, you'll find they'll become like your family,
Oh yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that like having a lot of these kind of like I would describe as like Wild West experiences in jiu-jitsu. What makes it even better is to have done it.
It's like the best way to bond with somebody for sure, because you're in like
jiu-jitsu tournaments are a great way.
The best, like, I mean, think about the time that we all drove. Jay drove us down to San Antonio from St. Louis in his like SUV, and it's like 5 of us in this car together, and like I'm the only girl, so of course I'm having to get squished. Moose is like this, like
in
just
reality,
broad shoulders,
I'm
like
probably like this, but to
like
Jena,
man spreading everything, shoulders wide, and I'm just like
better
here.
yet. What about coming home?
We didn't come home with you. Tyler and I, remember Tyler and I flew home.
Which is the one?
On the way there, or on the way down there, like we were all falling asleep because it's like, I don't know,
that was on the
12-hour drive. Yeah, 12-hour drive. And so everybody's sleeping. I'm like, I can't get comfortable, like squished in between like 2 dudes.
Square guy over here.
We have all the suitcases, all the like everything in the back, and I'm laying in the back of the SUV, like on top, like
of suitcases,
of like bags and suitcases,
like a cat.
Then we get pulled over in the middle of nowhere.
4 a.m. in Oklahoma.
4 a.m. Oklahoma. Jay had to be. It's JW.
I mean, he's going 100 plus, probably.
100
miles an hour. And why wouldn't you, honestly?
Honestly, we're trying to get there.
Yes.
Right? There's no hotels. We got to get to Texas.
Just got to get there.
Right? He's 6 monsters deep.
Right? Yes, all the monsters.
Is he a rock star guy? He's a rock star guy.
Yeah, he was a rock star guy. And we drove through the night and I remember even getting to that hotel the next day, coming back to the getting pulled over story in a minute, but we got to the hotel the next day and we got there at like 11 a.m. because we drove through the night, and then we're like, we want early check-in, and then they're like, you can't yet, and we were like, oh.
But when we got pulled over, I was like laying on the back, and I'm like, clearly this is very illegal what I'm doing. So I like slid like this forward, like to like get to the seat, and then like tried to like climb up so the cop couldn't see me.
Like a cat.
Like a cat.
No, it was great.
No ticket.
No ticket. Jay was the master of talking to me. Like, yeah, I do jiu-jitsu.
Well,
he's like, oh yeah, like you know Hoist Gracie? Yeah, Hoist is my instructor.
He teaches, at least he did. I don't know if he does anymore.
Oh yeah,
but he teaches like state patrol self-defense for grappling for like most of the Midwestern states.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times if you have like a jiu-jitsu sticker on your car, the police will be nice to you.
Well, I just remember that situation being like, that cop did such a poor job because Jenna's in the back, clearly was sleeping on top of the suitcase. She slid down. She's looking like guilty, and then we're all just silent in the back. And it's like 4 a.m. We're speeding through. Guys, girl that looks kidnapped in the back. And this guy's like, you guys do jiu-jitsu? And Jay's like, well, I do jiu-jitsu. And he's like, who's your instructor? And Jay's like, Hoyler Gracie. And the guy's like, yeah, Hoist Gracie. And Jay's like, that's the one. You know?
Might as well be the same person.
It is the same to them.
Yeah.
Yep. And
that one Gracie.
We did not have to like get that ticket.
Yeah. Tyler and I had we bought plane tickets home from that somehow.
Did you?
And yeah, I remember thinking, thank God we don't have to make that drive again.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
And I do remember after weighing in, and that was the same one where we weighed at the La Quinta. A lot of really interesting things there. But I remember afterwards we wanted to get Italian food because we were like, we need to get some carbs now. And we were like looking up places on the map. Somehow we ended up going to a uber fancy Italian place.
Oh my God. And I'm still poor at the time.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
We're all trying to like eat cheap. Everybody orders like ravioli or something.
No, we ordered the lasagna because it was like
lasagna. It was the only thing that was under $20.
So the waiter came around and he's like, would you guys like any wine? Any blah, blah. And we're like, nope. And then everybody's like, lasagna.
Yeah.
And the guy was just like,
extra bread,
it's a great
please.
Example when we walk in and we are wearing gym
just
clothes,
sweats.
essentially.
Yeah, we're in our sweats.
And it's one of those situations where you look at them, they look at you, and somebody should say, sorry, are you in the wrong spot? Sorry, are we in the wrong spot? Right? But no one wants to be rude. So we're like, table for 11.
I mean, we're just hungry. We didn't care. Like that's hungry. The thing. I need food.
But I forget who found it. They just looked at the ratings. They didn't look at the price dollars.
Yeah, probably me.
Probably Tyler.
I don't think it was. Was Rocky on that trip?
No, it was just John and us and Jay.
It might have been you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably me.
Yeah.
Guilty of that.
But that's another funny thing.
I've had that so many times with you guys.
Yes.
I'm just like, why are we eating at these places? Jesus, these are so nice. These are so
We're very bougie,
nice.
okay?
And this is more when we'd come to California for tournaments.
Yes.
And I remember we were eating sushi one time, and then it's like, yeah, I'll take a California roll. And that's like all I'm gonna have. And then we got back in with Jay, and I was with Jay, John, some other people, and he's like, you guys want In-N-Out?
Yes.
So we left a really nice sushi restaurant and went to In-N-Out.
I remember that one of the funniest stories though, and this is like, is we were in, I think it was for like Pan Am's one year, and afterward, like we'd all competed, and we were like, oh, we want Italian, and like somebody's like, yeah, let's get some good Italian food, and then Ronnie was like, yeah, I think there's a Fazoli's nearby. I was like, what?
I remember eating. That's like one of the few times I've had Fazoli's. Was in California.
We ate at this really nice like place in LA.
In Santa Monica.
Yeah, in Santa Monica, because I think Featherston was dating somebody there. So one of our friends, and so we went to this restaurant where it's like, I remember I ordered risotto and it took 45 minutes because they made it from scratch at this place.
Really?
Yeah. Meanwhile, our friend wanted Fazoli's.
Yep. And I just remember Jay like going along with it, and the waiter coming by and be like, what would you like to drink? And Jay was like, do you guys have Budweiser? And he's like, no. And Jay like named several other common beers, and he's like, what is it that you're looking for? And Jay's like, I just want a beer, any beer you got. And he's like, we have whatever. And Jay's like, is that beer? And he's like, it's like Italian beer. And Jay was just like hung his head, because he's like, I'll have the thing that's like Italian beer.
It's so great. It is really hard to organize like going to dinner and doing those things when you have like
so
20 people and everybody's got different like
group.
You need to have JW and some of the older guys. He's not that old, right?
Yeah.
But he was the leader, right? He was the black belt at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or just any black belt that you could have on here. Just ask them, is it herding cats? Trying to like organize lots of white and blue belts here. Because we have our pains. Because a lot of, especially from the Midwest, people come out to California to compete. Mm-hmm. There's two people. You're taking this serious. This is a real deal. Yep. And it's like, this is a great reason to go to California.
This is a this is a good vacation.
It's like it's like a themed cruise. I'm going on the Star Wars cruise. I'm really into Star Wars.
And you have the friends that sleep in the closet.
Yeah, like a cat.
I think that was like the one thing that was like really frustrating for me as like we progressed in rank. Yeah. Coming out to
which means
Pans.
You compete later.
You compete later in the week. You have all these people who are lower belts. Hear all the stories of us like having the greatest time going to compete in these tournaments, like the good old days. Want that to be that experience. They compete early and then they're just like goofing off the whole time. And I'm like, I got to compete. Like you realize the more you do that, it's like, no, this is my job. I'm not coming here to have fun. Like I will relax afterward, but like until then, like I'm here to do a job.
And then you wake up and that person has already competed, and then you're like, gosh, dang it. Why is there a packet of Skittles in my water? And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, I got drunk last night and put a bunch of Skittles in your water. And you're like, but why? And they're like, I just love Skittles. I thought you love them too.
Yeah, I don't mind people like having fun. That is honestly the only time where I get frustrated. It's like I literally compete tomorrow.
Yes.
Please don't wake me up at 4
Just don't wake me up. Yeah.
Just don't. And that's never happened.
No, but that's why Tyler and I kind of like we started just like learning our lesson. I'm like, I'm gonna book my own travel. Everything separate. Like we'll connect with you guys at the tournament. Like I'll have my own rental car, my own room. I'm just not going to deal with like all the nonsense that will go on with everyone else.
You reminded me of one last story.
Okay.
It is my worst jiu-jitsu experience. Okay. And it was my final straw, which I don't travel with anyone. I'm not syncing up travel itineraries.
And I feel like you are probably the most like chill, like go with the flow person.
I'm very much.
Yes.
If it's like
you'll put up with a lot.
I will.
I will not.
I will. Yeah, it's like things are gonna happen. We'll get through it. We'll figure it out. Right? I'm never gonna choose someone out for it. It's like, guys, come on, just go to bed.
Are we staying in a barn?
Yeah. Should be fine. I bet I stayed in a barn.
My very first jiu-jitsu trip ever, we stayed in Compton, and I just remember it was Big Brian and our instructor JW, and we're driving down the road. And JW's like, we're not staying in Compton, are we? And he's like, no, I think it's further down the road. We go one block. where the sign literally says Compton, and he's like, it's this one, and we like go into that hotel.
So funny.
Yeah. So what was
funny.
your final straw?
Oh, so I competed in Mexico City, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so living here, it's cheaper to drive across the border, fly out of Tijuana to Mexico City. It's like substantially cheaper. It's incredibly easy. There's just a walkway to get to the airport. But anyways, coming back from Mexico City, it's an international flight, or what I'm treating it, it's like, I'm going to get us there 3-4 hours in advance, whatever. So it's like 3 a.m. I wake us up. I get my roommate who also, I gave him my itinerary. It's like, here, these are my flight numbers. Here's all. I booked a hotel. You can stay with me. Just book it here. So we go. And so I get us there. We're like 3 hours. And he's like, once we get there, he's freaking out. Like, no, this is the wrong gate. This is the wrong gate. I'm like, well, maybe it is, just go with the flow. Mistake. I'm like, you sound pretty confident. It's 3 a.m. I don't get whatever. It's like, yeah, take us to the next gate. We go there. I ask somebody, like, nope, you got to go back. I'm like, so now I have to walk like 15 minutes, right? So now I have 2 hours and 45 minutes to get to this plane. That's fine. So I get there. At this point, he is panicking because he doesn't want to miss this flight. So he is probably 20 paces in front of me, power walking. And I'm like, whatever. It's so early.
It's too early to deal with that.
It's so early. We're going to get there when we get there, right? Get there. He asked me, he's like, no, we got to go further. We get on this tram, take this tram over. I asked somebody else, like, no. So we're getting contradictory. Finally, we're in line at this Mexico Airways. I asked them, like, hey, it's like, is this it? Like, yeah, you're actually.
Sir, you're in Panama.
Yeah, pretty much. They basically told me, no, you're Mexico Airways United. This is Mexico Airways. And he'd already left and got on the plane and got there. But needless to say, I missed my flight. And so it cost me an extra like $500 to change my plane ticket. And I had to stay in Mexico City for another like 7 hours in an airport. The whole time, I'm like, this is never happening again.
No. You don't trust other people anymore.
And you're having those experiences, and alongside that, every time you check into a flight or check into a hotel room or get in an Uber or a taxi, the person's like, what are you doing here? And you just have to ask yourself the question, am I going to say I'm here for a jiu-jitsu tournament? Because do I have the like emotional bandwidth to have that conversation with this chatty person?
Especially when you are cutting weight.
I bet John is was my main travel partner for a long time for a lot of this. I bet he has 20 of those stories about me because I'm just the most, it'll work itself out.
Oh yeah. Moose shows up basically with the equivalent of a like trash bag as
sometimes
his,
if it's a one day
suitcase.
Plenty. I have my gi, which is my belt tied in it, and a change of clothes.
I think the first time you competed at Pans, like when we all went out there, they lost your luggage, so you didn't have like clothes, and you were like, that's fine. And I was calling every day like to find, because he's like, you didn't care, and I was like, how do you not care about getting your luggage? Like,
I have my gi, and
you have your gi, and I'm like, yeah, but you have no clothes, and like you're wearing dirty socks, like and underwear, I'm assuming, and this is gross. Like I can't handle it.
They weren't helping me at all, but Jena's a different beast.
I called every day, and I'm like, they have your stuff, it's there, you can go pick it up at John Wayne Airport right now.
Jena out by the hour for people that like want to change their cable plan or like want to dispute charges. Because
oh my god, I actually kind of like arguing with people about that.
I feel like people would be like, I just want to argue the charges. Jena's like, I got you, and then she comes back like 30 minutes later. She's like, you have a $700 credit with AT&T.
That's what I actually got a credit from that.
Did you?
Yeah, you got me a flight credit.
Man, I feel like I didn't get any props for that.
I bet so many. I'm sure I lost it. I'm sure so many. There's probably more stories about, like, I have one of like all jiu-jitsu where I got frustrated with travel.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've caused so many more.
I would love to just interview everyone like on our team.
Yeah, John
back home.
But John has stories about
is a mom.
Everybody. He's a mom. He takes care of me.
Yeah,
he holds all the purses.
Yeah, I remember we were out. We were because we were out in it, and like we were like dancing. The booth my purse was sitting like literally right there, and I'm like, I can see my stuff, and I'm right here. I know
John
what's
got
going
all
on.
the purses.
John, I look over and John has my purse on his shoulder, and I'm like,
could get stolen.
That's fine. Thanks,
get
Mom.
Stolen.
Thanks, Mom.
So yeah, I think jiu-jitsu is full of a lot of really unique and interesting experiences along the way.
Yes.
And I have no doubts that if you're listening to this now and you're like, I'm a white belt, I'll never get those experiences. You will.
You will.
You
Definitely.
will.
They're there. Jiu-jitsu can't help itself. But speaking of helping yourself, you should help yourself to some essential essential amino acids.
Yeah.
And there's only one place that you can get them in a quality fashion in which they're delivered to your body in a nutritional format, and that is by
Kion Aminos.
I was
Sorry,
like-
I didn't know you were looking
I
at
was
me
like,
for
do you
that.
not know what I'm setting you up
No,
for right
like
now?
what? No.
It's a promo.
I was about to pitch something in.
No.
I was going to guess, and it would have been awful.
No, Kion Aminos. They are awesome. They are like one of the only brands that I have tried and really like for just like fueling my workouts and being able to like maintain muscle and that are like not with all these like artificial additives and things like that. So if you want like a full like amino profile that you're taking, which is necessary, Kion Aminos, if you go to the website, use the code BIshopBJJ and you can save 15%.
And if you want to save up to 20% on gis, uniforms, gifts for people in your jiu-jitsu life for the holidays, I recommend going to fujisports.com. You can use the promo code BISHOP at checkout and get 20% off, which, I mean, that's
Or
20%
Moose
off the
for
fee.
25.
That'd be hilarious if you cut a deal with Fuji and undercut us.
It would be hilarious.
Okay.
When I was setting
Those
up
are
for
the things. Those are the things. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining the podcast. We'll catch you next time on
Not fighting.